Everyone talks about how situationships are toxic, how they're confusing, painful, and unclear. But realistically, nobody wants to admit the truth. Situationships feel better than relationships. And honestly, it's not even close. Because in a situationship, you get all the best parts of love without ever actually having to face the reality of it. Now, think about it. When you're in a situationship, there's no pressure, no expectations, no responsibility. It's literally just connection. You talk every single day. You flirt, you open up. So you get to feel seen and you get to feel wanted. So you get the high, the dopamine, but then you don't actually have to build anything real. And that's exactly why it hits so hard. And I feel like today that's why situationships are so common in modern dating. Because situationships are basically the highlight reel of a relationship. It's the honeymoon stage. And it never has to be more. There's no bills, no conflict, no long-term planning, no accountability, just emotions, chemistry, just enough closeness to feel something, and not structured enough to break whatever it is. It's like emotional fast food. It tastes amazing, but there's nothing real there. It may not even be healthy for you. If you've been in a situationship, which I'm assuming most men have by this point, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You start to crave it. And it's not the person, it's the feeling. The constant texting, the attention, the good morning messages, the late night conversations, texting sessions is incredibly powerful and it feels intense. So it feels like someone is choosing you without actually having to commit to you. So it becomes addictive and your brain doesn't care if it's real or if it's going to last a long time. Your brain just knows that it feels real and good in that moment. But here's where it does get darker. Situationships don't just feel better than relationships. They end up replacing real relationships. Because once you have that level of ease, and not only that, but it feels incredible, real relationships start to feel like work because it's effort and pressure and responsibility. And then you have obligation and then you have conflict and you have to start figuring out, okay, what do I do when this thing gets boring? How do I solve for this and that? How do we manage our lives and put them together better? And suddenly being healthy feels boring and stable or things like that just seem empty because it doesn't have that same intensity and draw. It doesn't feel unpredictable. It doesn't have the same emotional highs and lows. So then what ends up happening? People just keep choosing situationships over and over and over. Not because they want less, but because they're addicted to that version of love. Because it doesn't require them to risk anything. And when you're considering how you feel in that moment, it feels better than what a long-term relationship has to offer. And if we're being completely honest, a lot of people don't actually want a relationship. They want the feeling of a relationship without the reality of one. They want to go out on dates, feel seen, feel heard, be cared for, have someone to text with, the good morning, good night routines. But they don't want the other end of that, the conflict, the problems, the obligation. Because obviously you're always going to want the good over the bad. So if you can engineer and manufacture solely good and no bad, then you'll definitely do that. And personally, I think that derives also from toxic relationships because all it takes is like one good toxic relationship and you start to understand that a relationship almost feels like a trap. And it almost trains you to think, okay, so relationships eventually get boring, they eventually get toxic, they eventually turn into obligation and all these negative things. But again, situationships, they feel great. Early on, everything feels amazing. So it kind of trains you to do one over the other. I don't think it's surprising that the same people who want situationships are the same people who usually have emotional baggage and who usually have some sort of trauma or chaotic past. They're usually emotionally unavailable and so on. Of course, we all want connection and love. It's just that the relationships you were in taught you that it's also dangerous. So you want to be cared about, but you don't want to be responsible for someone. You want the connection, but not the commitment. You want the depth, but without the weight that comes with it. And a situationship gives you exactly that. Just enough love to feel alive, but not enough to build a life. So yeah, in some ways, situationships are better than relationships. They're easier, lighter, more exciting, but that's also the trap. Because the same exact thing that makes you feel so good is the exact reason they don't last. Because you're not building anything, you're just experiencing something. So eventually the feelings fade. Or worse, it stays long enough to keep you from ever choosing something real. Situationships don't break your heart. They just keep you from ever giving it to something real. Anyways, I'm out. Peace.